7 o'clock, meeting of the Planning Commission will come to order. I have a roll call, please.
David Dahl.
Here.
Margo Mooring.
Here.
Britton Sanders. Greg Sutton.
Here.
John Scott Walker.
Here.
Colleen Murphy White.
Here.
Justin Lehrman.
Here. All right, I believe we have minutes from the October 26th meeting. Any discussion? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Wait, Ms. Ireland, any correspondence?
Yes, sir. We received one email today in regards to the one case before you tonight, PC 20-20, and that email was at your seats when you got here, and it is in opposition of PC 20-20.
One in front of us from last name Ross.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Any old business?
No old business.
All right, then new business, PC 20-20.
PC 20-20 is a conditional use application. Owner is Jack's Beach Town Center, LLC. 5150 Belfort Road, Building 100, Jacksonville, Florida 32256. Applicant is Cookies Florida Inc., 4675 MacArthur Court, 415, Newport Beach, California 92660. And the agent is Mr. William Gibbs with Ackerman LLP, 50 North Laura Street, Suite 3100, Jacksonville, Florida 32202. And the property location is 131 North 1st Avenue. And the request is for conditional use approval for a proposed medical marijuana treatment center dispensing facility in the Central Business District CBD zoning district pursuant to section 34, 345D11 of the Jacksonville Beach Land Development Code. Subject property is located on the northeast corner of 1st Avenue North and 2nd Street North and currently contains vacant commercial buildings. The property is being redeveloped into a mixed-use project with a restaurant, office, and retail space. The applicant, a tenant in the future retail project, wants to operate a medical marijuana treatment center dispensing facility at the subject property. The applicant was advised by staff that conditional use approval would be required for the use. Adjacent uses include a motel to the east, Latham Plaza to the south, commercial uses to the west, and a parking lot to the north. If approved, this would be the second approved dispensing facility located in the downtown area, and at least 4 other establishments exist within the city currently. Dispensing facilities must comply with strict state of Florida regulations for access and security. Adjacent uses should not be negatively impacted.
Thank you, Ms. Ireland. Just briefly, for those that are in attendance, the method in which the commission hears these applications is that staff will read the application into the record, as Ms. Ireland has just done. Following that, we'll have the applicant come forward stating their name and address and offering any additional information, answering any questions from the commissioners. Following that, I'll open it up to the public. I have some speaker cards here, so I'll ask those that wish to come forward, again stating their name and address, and they'll have 3 minutes to speak. Same with anyone, those in favor, then those in opposition. Public portion of the meeting will then be closed, and then discussion will be just between the applicant, commissioners, and staff. So with that, if the applicant's present, please step forward, state your name and address, and first, raise your right hand.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
And if you could please state your name and address for the record, and feel free to move the microphone up if you need it.
William Gibbs. My address is 50 North Forest Street, Suite 3100, Jacksonville, Florida, 32202. First, I want to thank Ms. Ireland and the staff for presenting their report and doing the research and review they do on their end, and thank the commission for my time. Cookies is a national brand. They have dispensaries in California, Oregon, Washington, Oklahoma, and Michigan. And they've also expanded internationally with a new license that they got in Holland and an operating dispensary in Spain, and also a location in Israel. So they're very professional. They have a strong background. They're excited about the prospect of coming to Jacksonville Beach, and I'm here for any questions. So please let me know if there's anything I can assist with.
Questions for the applicant? Ms. Moore?
Through the chair, I'd like to understand where your clients would park on a July afternoon when all the parking spots are taken. Will there be any on-site parking? It's kind of hard to picture. There is one spot in the back, am I correct about that? But the building footprint will be different?
Well, they are changing the building footprint, but they would use the parking lot that's behind the existing building, and the street parking, and the parking in front of the existing building. I don't think the parking situation would change all that much. The owner is here too, so if he needs to address any more details about the specifics of the building and the design layout.
Well, if you can help me understand, so is the parking in the rear of the building is private parking?
So the parking lot that's behind the building? I think that's public parking.
Ms. Ireland?
Yes, sir. Thank you. The parking lot in the rear is public parking. The property that is this address, and both of them, 131 and 127, there are existing parking variances that will carry forward with the new development. So they will not have any on-site parking. That's a grandfathered in variance from probably 15 years ago. So as the tenants and customers do now, they use the parking in the rear or other parking nearby.
Okay, well, if I may kind of continue, I would like to understand how the business would work on a crowded summer day. Because, for example, I seldom come downtown because I'm pretty sure I wouldn't find a space. So if someone's going to be there for 15 minutes or something, how does that, I'd just like to understand how you see that working.
Yeah, well, I think there's only a handful of days when it would be incredibly crowded that it would really prohibit someone from getting to the building. There's a lot of foot traffic and bike traffic down there anyways, so I imagine a handful of people will be walking or biking regardless. And the other customers will have to deal with parking, same way anyone else has to deal with parking in downtown on a crowded day. So, I think that's about it. I would point out that the new development will take up 2 existing sites, so you won't have. Currently, there's Campeche Bay restaurant and the former Ruby Beach, so it's taking over both of those spaces. So you won't have the restaurants there anymore that were there. I think there's a restaurant component of the new development, but you'll have a much larger section of that block with the street parking in front to help with that.
So was it considered to put some on-site parking?
I have to defer to the landowner. He's been more involved with the physical development of his proposed development. We'll just be a tenant in his
Yeah, I mean, we may have, are there other questions for the applicant, but we'll have the owner speak to that. Does the approval that's there now, did that predate Campeche Bay and Ruby Beach, or?
I don't have the specifics
Yeah.
on those, but they carry forward for future businesses. They're not increasing the parking requirement any, so it's kind of a wash. In other words, if they were required to have 80 spaces, for example, they're not increasing that, so the variances would still apply.
All right, if there are other questions, we'll have the owner step forward.
Thank you.
We may have more questions for you, but
Yes.
if you would please raise your right hand.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? If you could please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Mark Angelo, 1283 Ponte Vedra Boulevard, Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida, 32082.
Ms. Mooring, did you want to sort of restate?
Yes, if you could just kind of walk me through, it is a relatively large site, so I wondered if there was some configuration that would allow for some parking that could be dedicated to, certainly the dispensary idea doesn't seem like people would be spending too much time there. Understood the restaurant, that kind of is the way it works now. But the dispensary, I have a hard time seeing how it would actually work in busy times at beach, which are a lot of time, sometimes we
Well,
don't have pandemics.
Sure. Well, July 4th is sea and sky. There's half a dozen days at the beach that are tougher parking for anybody. We have, what we're planning on doing, we're raising both buildings. We're creating can you hear me okay? We're creating a walk-through corridor in between the two, but we're going to build new buildings that are going to be connected. But you'll be able to park in the back and walk through the building instead of currently you have to walk all the way around the block. It should be less intensive parking because there were two restaurants on site, and now there's going to be one restaurant with a rooftop component. And so anybody in the building on a high traffic day, there's any business in Jack's Beach is going to struggle on those particular days. Some businesses may choose not to be open those days. It just depends on how it works out. But they do, from my understanding, like the other dispensaries, they're going to have delivery or pre-orders where you can just drive up, run in, and pick up your order and come out. Parking in Jack's Beach is tough, whether it's a dispensary or a restaurant or wherever. But we do have permitted parking with our deed. I believe it's 139 spaces that it's like a parking license kind of thing.
So is there, part of the design is that a car could?
No,
be
ma'am,
on the
no.
site?
Just for public safety, it's going to be, if you look out there right now, it's just dark, and there's going to be a lot more light on the corner. It's going to be a lot more inviting. Feel a lot safer than it does even tonight. And so, there'll be some parking up front. It's not dedicated parking. It's just something that people are used to at the beach having to deal with parking. July 4th, it's going to be tough to even get to the beaches, and much less to get out of the beaches. So, people may ride their bikes. It's just hard to say, but it's, like I said, whether it's a dispensary or a surf shop or whatever it is, it's tough it's tough and it's something people have to deal with. Does that answer your question? Okay. We're really excited about this new development. I did bring some renderings. I don't know if you guys would like to see them, but I could pass them out if you would like to. gonna be on the right-hand side of the page on the first floor. The restaurant will be on the corner with the rooftop component upstairs above it. And then above Cookies will be like an event space or maybe office space, which we're just not sure yet. But there is like I said, there's a walkway through the building. It'll be well lit. You'll feel comfortable parking in the back or walking through the building. What I really like about the dispensary component is their legal requirement to have 24-hour surveillance and security guards, live security guards while they're open. And even potentially, it's not mandated, but I mean, even potentially 24 hours. I mean, it just depends on, where they open. They are a high quality, company with a great reputation. They're new to Florida. They've got a huge investment in Florida. They do give back to the community. I don't think it's like free product, but it's, they do give it to, disadvantaged people, like veterans that, that need it and can't afford it. But I don't know how that works in Florida, but I do know that they're very charitable. Jack's Feature is a high barrier to entry to even open a dispensary because you can't have a loan and take rent from a dispensary and deposit it in your bank, a federal bank. So it's, if there wasn't such a high barrier, they'd probably be popping up a lot more than they actually are. Let's see. That's pretty much all I've got. If y'all have any other questions after everybody speaks, I'm happy to try to address what I can.
Any other questions for the agent or the owner?
The drive-through on the side? Is there a drive-through?
No, there's no drive-through.
There's no drive-through.
No. There's a walkway between the buildings.
Gotcha.
No drive-through, no dedicated parking. So for the restaurant, we'll probably have to work on a valet system.
Sure.
Yep. And you never know. I mean, Cookies could do that too. I mean, people just have to adapt to the parking situation.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Island, in your professional opinion, is this less intensive or more intensive, or is that not a fair question given what could come in there?
Well, I would mirror what Mr. Angelo said, that there were 2 restaurants there before. Restaurants have the highest parking requirement of any other use per our code. So because they are going down to a retail space and potentially some office space, those are have a much lower parking requirement, specifically in the central business district. So from a parking standpoint, it would be a less intense use than the 2 restaurants that were previously there.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Dahl, you have some speaker? Let's do just for the record, we do have to enter the record, the email from Rusty Ross, and that was in opposition to.
I did have one question. Should I wait then? I just want to know what the seating capacity is for the restaurant. Because this restaurant has 2 stories, and the other one's working on 1 story. So I'm just wondering if we're comparing seating capacity apples to apples, what that looks like.
Well, if I could just remind you guys that the application is not regarding the restaurant. It's regarding the dispensing facility.
I'm happy to answer the question.
Sure. Yeah.
I'll take your answer.
Okay, well, so it's based on square footage. The restaurant's, I want to say 6,600 square feet. So if it's 1 per, to have to be able to serve alcohol, you have to have a minimum of 150 seats. So I would say, it's hard to say. It just depends on which restaurant comes and how long it take.
Thanks. All right, we've got the email, we've got one speaker card indicating in opposition to and a few in favor of, and I have one here that I'm not sure about. It's not marked, from Ms. Bauer. Is that in favor or in opposition?
Oh, I thought I marked opposition.
Okay. So we will let you go first, Barbara Bauer.
If you could please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? And if you could please state your name and address clearly into the microphone.
Barbara Bauer, 604 13th Avenue South in Jacksonville Beach. Good evening. Ever since we moved here over 10 years ago, we've read and heard, I'm speaking on behalf of my husband as well, Gary Bauer, a lot about improving the atmosphere and quality of life in the downtown area. And a while back, I attended a community forum on where the city should be going and what people wanted to see in Jack's Beach. And many ideas were presented: a new boardwalk, landscaping with trees for shade, benches along the beach, activities for families, fishing pier with maybe a restaurant or a coffee shop on it, to name just a few that I remember. And I don't recall anyone envisioning or requesting another marijuana dispensary. Now, I didn't know about the two downtown, but I know there's four right around me. There's one on 6th Avenue North, there's one at 1198 Beach Boulevard, and I got two right down the street from me, one on 14th and one on 12th. So I really don't think our community is underserved in this particular area. So I'm thinking, well, you know, I did notice that there's none located in either Neptune Beach or Atlantic Beach or even down in Ponte Vedra. So maybe he should look into that area where there's maybe more people would be interested, since we already have 6 in Little Jack's Beach. I just wanted to say that my husband and I are opposed to this for those reasons. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer.
Okay, our next speaker in opposition will be Gary Patel. Gary, you here? There he is.
You can please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And if you can please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Gary Patel, 725 Bon Air Circle, Jacksonville Beach. Just wanted to touch base, first of all, to the developer. I appreciate the fact that he is taking a very important corner of the downtown development and trying to do something unique with it. Though I think in this case, the conditional use is inappropriate. The Downtown Community Redevelopment Plan was approved in 1987, the Downtown Vision Plan in 2007. And then in the 2030 Comprehensive Plan, which was approved by the city in 2030, it reaffirmed what was done in the Vision Plan. And then ultimately, the Downtown Action Plan in 2015 moved forward a lot of the items that were specifically mentioned in these earlier plans. These plans called for or reinforced development to be family resident friendly, to promote standards of high quality, ensure private development pattern and character that supports the plan, to attract residences downtown, and then ultimately for mixed-use commercial and retail products to add vitality to the downtown civic core. In this case, I don't believe putting a marijuana medical dispensary does any of those things. And for those reasons, I ask that you deny this specific request. There is a corridor along 6th Avenue North that was planned as part of the vision plan by the city for retail development. And if there's an appropriate place for it, it would be along that 6th Avenue North retail corridor. Just an option. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next speaker is William Gibbs in support.
I already
Okay.
spoke against it.
Thank you. Mark Anib? Anib?
Angela.
Angelo? Can't read.
Sorry about that.
I can't write.
Ken Marsh.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? If you can please state your name and address for the record.
Ken Marsh, 2011 Gale Avenue. I am in support of a conditional use for the CBD dispensary, but only on a limited temporary time frame of either 1 or 2 years, of which we have a precedent for. My reasoning is as follows. In 1987, a downtown vision plan was approved but left undone. In 2007, a revised plan was developed, approved, but left undone. Developers and investors partially decide how to invest their money based upon the commitment of the city to become what it says it is supposed to become. On this note, we have failed the developers, the investors, and ultimately the citizens. I mention these plans because if we had a plan, you would have more clarity and specificity to what truly fits in this district. Quoting section 221 and 231 of the LDC, your decision tonight will partially be determined on quote-unquote appropriateness and, I quote again, consistent with the harmonious development of the zoning district in which it is proposed. Without a defined plan, the term appropriate and harmonious development is subjective at best. For this permit hearing, I believe we have a developer who cares about our city and our downtown. I believe this to be so by the quality of work he's already done in Jack's Beach and my conversations with him. He's talked about the original plan. I will say, as he said, it was a full demolish and rebuild. But I will say that in the beginning, the focus and the keynote was about the restaurant. But obviously, in this COVID world, it would be a tremendous financial risk to move forward with such a bold plan as a big restaurant on that corner. So once again, I ask that you grant Mr. Angelo this permit, but on a temporary basis. This additional time period would accomplish several things. The developer will get some opportunity to make some return on his investment until the COVID crisis passes. The CRA is currently working on a new iteration of the downtown plan, and that would give you better insight as what constitutes harmonious development. This is expected to be done by the first and second quarter of this year. And third, the new mayor and 3 new council members have committed to the citizens to bring us a district with more restaurants and shops. They are just getting their feet planted, so that strategy is yet to be defined. Until the council and the CRA is able to get traction on executing a downtown plan, and until we see restaurants return to normalcy, it would be extremely unfair to the Angelo Group to not get a return on his investment, at least on the short term. Longer term, and I'm getting ready to wrap up, it would be my future expectation that the CRA and council would be working and partnering with Mr. Angelo and other investors to show them that we can be a great, vibrant downtown area, and with that comes a much greater return on investment from restaurants and public shops rather than a prescription-only CBD dispensary. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last speaker will be David Laurie.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And if you can please state your name and address for the record.
My name is David Laurie, 422 Jacksville Drive, Jacks Beach. So I'm going to give a little myself to you guys because I think this is a very important thing to consider. When I was a child, my brother happened to partake in extracurricular left-handed cigarettes, right? And so it was never my thing. So to this very day, me, myself, I have never, ever even tried it. And I went into the Air Force. I happened to have a top secret position. They literally hooked me up to a lie detector test to make sure that I, in fact, didn't do the marijuana, as people say. And so when I grew up, it was always something of a negative sort. And we have that opinion when you look at it like that. Today, I know people who have scoliosis. I know people who have migraines. I know people who are depressed. And I know, there's a very amount of things that people have wrong with them. And to say that this is not a harmonious use to our community in today's world is really going back to the bygone days when we didn't understand and realize the benefits of what's happening. The particular organization that's coming in, I think, would be a tremendous asset in terms of branding and quality and to help the people of our community. This isn't, people aren't walking in there trying to get high and have fun. I went to Las Vegas for New Year's, don't recommend it right now. And I went to this place called Planet 13. Didn't really know. I went with some friends. And it turns out it's the largest dispensary in the world. And in Las Vegas, it's legal. You can smoke, supposedly in your home, in the hotels. You couldn't stop the smell. It was really an unusual experience for me personally, because it's not where I go. But what I do know is that we, as a group, aren't looking to create a free-for-all Colorado, LA, or Las Vegas experience here. This is something that makes a difference for my friends, my family, for your friends and your family. And I think that this particular use would be perfect in line with where we're trying to go with our community and helping the people. And lastly, I want to point out, people who need this help, insurance doesn't cover this. This isn't something that's allowed yet. And so what makes a difference is a competitive marketplace where people have an option to pay for what they need one place or another for the quality and the brand that they're looking for. And I think that that's what people are missing. It's not a matter of we have 4 or 5 of them already. It's a matter that we need to have people with a choice so they can help themselves and make a difference. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Mr. Gibbs or Mr. Angelo, anything you'd like to address that you've heard? Then just for the record, the public portion of the meeting is closed.
Thank you. Thank you for the chair. One thing I would like to point out is that, I heard some of the concerns back there, and I think their concern is really with the zoning code. The zoning code specifically says these treatment facilities are allowed by conditional use. For the central business district, which is a relatively small area downtown. And we've abided by the zoning code and the application process. We feel that we've met the requirements, and so I hear what they're saying, but I don't think that it's necessarily appropriate for this application. If there's an issue with the zoning code or the way the map's drawn, I think that's for a different discussion. But I think we've met the burden under the code as it's written and what's required for a conditional use permit. Additionally, I would add that while there are other dispensaries in Jack's Beach, the nature of the business is such that you can only sell what you grow. So it's not like, so if one dispensary has a bad crop or a bad year, or they're having supply issues and they're not being able to get it where they need it across the state, that's going to severely limit people's ability to go, get what they need at a particular dispensary, because it's limited to what that company can provide. They can't go pull excess surplus from other farms or other dispensaries. I mean, sometimes they're just done, they're just out. So you do need a healthy competition, because if one farm has a bad crop or a bad year, then you have some other options around. It's not a normal, what we think of in a normal commodity supply chain. You can't just call a different factory or get surplus from someone else. It's what you can provide. So I would just ask that that be kept in mind, that there's not some infinite supply out there that everybody can just pull off if it's what you can grow. And with that, I'll answer any other questions.
Any follow-up questions for Mr. Gibbs or Mr. Angelo? All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Question, Ms. Ireland, if we were to put a time on this conditional use application for the applicant to come back, is that from now, or can we specify if that's from the time of a CO, or?
You could specify from time of CO or from opening day, because if you were to do it now, I mean, they haven't even demoed the existing building, so that would limit their operational time. And you guys have done that before, and that's something that our department would keep track of.
Mr. Angelo, if you would approach. What's your estimate of when you'll be completed with the project for tenants to move in?
Well,
just an estimate. This 2021 sometime, or no?
The shell should be complete by October, and for tenants to be able to start their build out.
So you're talking a year?
A year. Restaurant could be first quarter of next year. I really would like to not be limited on how long they could stay open or how long this conditional use permit lasts, because this is a significant investment to downtown Jacks Beach. It needs it. And it's a kick-starting project. We're spending a lot of money on this project. What I like about the dispensary is that it's not as intensive as a restaurant would be, and they have limited hours. What we're going to do to that corner is going to allow people to come to Jacks Beach. People go to the Atlantic Beach Town Center to go eat at a nice restaurant. Well, now they can come to Jacks Beach Town Center and have a nice meal, and not really have to get on First Street late night, with the bars and all. I mean, it's really going to be a high quality, as you can see in the rendering, a high quality development. I support a development plan for Jacks Beach, definitely, and would like to be involved with that. But I think that to limit us, and by the time a plan comes together and gets implemented, I mean, the lease could be over. And
well, my answer to you on that is I think clearly you're going to be building a quality product here. You're going to have tenants in there, whether it's this tenant or another tenant, and what that can do is, if there are concerns or questions, it allows us to have the applicant come back, not you, but have the applicant come back and just re-review that application, not pick it apart again, but re-review that, discuss with them and with staff if everything's been operating as expected and those types of things. So it's just sort of for the most part, it's usually kind of a checkpoint. If there are concerns at this point in time, that just gives a little more peace of mind, if you will, sometimes on applications. So
I understand that. We have a 10-year lease with them, and they have options, and so we're building their build out for them per their specifications. And to come back 2 years later and say, okay, that's it, is very costly and not really fair. But I mean, I do have Jacks Beach. I've done a lot of developments in Jacks Beach. We do high quality development You know, we did, for Bonefish and Roy's, we bought Take and Save in 2002, and across the street, we bought Campeche Bakery years ago, and completely improved that place. You know, Burrito Gallery in the corner, Dr. Cole, which was a layaway, but these are great added communities. So, I mean, we are invested in the community. This is a generational project. This isn't, you know, any developer would not do this deal because it's so costly, and the return, you couldn't develop it and sell it for a return that would be acceptable. So we are, you know, we're in it for the long haul. I mean, we're in it for generations.
Yeah. Good. Any questions for Mr. Angelo? Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you for answering that, Ms. Ireland. So if someone were wanting to make a motion and add that, we could just specify from the point of certificate of occupancy, which who knows when that'll be. Yeah. Makes sense.
Mr. Chair,
Hmm.
I would just like to reiterate from Cookie's point of view, this is a significant investment for them and a long-term investment. They're expected to sign a 10-year lease with options after that. I mean, I can't say that, you know, they would even be willing to make this investment and sign a 10-year lease if there was a chance they could get their permit pulled. It you know, doesn't really make sense for them. And I think they've met the requirements under the code, and the build out would be specific for their space. And again, it's not there's not like products and weed and all this stuff just out in the open. It's all in the back. You know, it's a modest waiting room where people fill their orders, and then the order's physically filled in the back, you know, out of view. And again, I would just like to reiterate that this be passed without the time frame condition, because I don't know how they could sign a 10-year lease if there was a threat that their permit would.
We're just talking about options.
Okay.
But they definitely won't if we deny the application, so I can promise you that.
That's correct.
Just reiterate my point. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Any further discussion, or do I have a motion?
I have a question for Ms. Ireland, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Ireland, could you go briefly, just give us a synopsis of the state guidance on this issue? Because it's been a while since we've been around the horn here, but I remember there's some significant issues with it.
You're correct, it has been a while. From the state's perspective, from Florida Statute 381, we essentially can either ban dispensaries or allow them. Jack's Beach chose to allow them in 3 of our commercial zoning districts, the downtown being one of them. The state says that if we do allow them, we have to essentially treat them as if they're pharmacies. I will tell you, and it's already been mentioned by the applicant's agent, that they have a lot of very strict security and access requirements. If you haven't been approved by a doctor and have a card, you're not even getting in the building. So it's not like a regular retail store where anybody from the public can walk in and purchase anything. The requirements for local municipalities, essentially, we can only regulate so much. And essentially that is that we can choose which zoning districts we want to allow them in, which we did, I believe that was 2018. We can't regulate the number of them, and the state already regulates their hours of operation, which are 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. So they would not be open any later than that on any given day of the week, unless that changes, and that's not a local rule, it's a state rule.
Thank you, Ms. Ireland.
Yes, sir.
Discussion or motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have another question from Ms. Ireland, if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you just give us a quick update on where we are on the look at the land development rights?
We haven't started that process yet. I know the city manager is still, I believe, consolidating all of the information from the community visioning sessions that were conducted, and I do believe that there are plans for more progress on that before we move forward with an LDC review, and that will likely coincide with a comprehensive plan review as well. So it is coming. We're doing some of the community-wide visioning first before we move on to that.
Thank you.
Concerns, questions, discussion?
I love the rendering. I love what this would look like. I like the restaurant. I understand and sympathize with restaurant owners now, you know, and when reality comes back to be determined when that's going to happen. My concern is, you know, it's a conditional use, and, you know, that's prime property, and there's 100 other places it can go. And if we're really trying to make downtown family friendly, this just seems to go a bit against that. That's where I have my concerns, and I love the idea of being able to come back and look at it in a couple of years, you know, whatever that looks like, to be able to come back and readdress that. Because if you're doing business right and you're doing it appropriately and it's working, it's a done, you know, it's a no-brainer. But if it isn't working within what everybody's vision is, it gives us a chance to correct the mistake. But if it's done right, we reaffirm it. And so that's my confliction at the moment.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to share that I don't have a problem with the use. I see the use as being compatible with a downtown. That's not a concern to me.
Just spitballing out there, what do you think of it? You review it in 10 years after their lease. Just that way that they, you know, they have their full investment of their lease for 10 years, and then you'll have a better idea. Just an idea.
I like y'all's input. Let's put it into a motion.
I'll just make a motion to accept.
I second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second to accept as written.
Can I have an amendment?
Oh, yes, you can.
I'd like to amend that upon certificate of occupancy, that 4 years from that date, we can readdress it.
I withdraw my second.
Withdraw your second? Okay. So the motion is for approval with conditional use for review in 48 months from certificate of occupancy. Any discussion? Ms. Mooring is withdrawing her second.
Just to clarify, as an alternate, I pretty much can't do anything, right? Just making sure. I can't second.
Sorry?
As an can't second, or, sure you can. I didn't know that. Okay.
I'll make a motion to deny.
We have to dispose of our first motion first, so.
Okay.
Any interest in a second? I don't hear any, so with lack of a second, the motion dies.
And the floor is open for
Sure.
discussion or
Sure.
motions.
I'll go ahead and motion to approve it with no amendments to it, or
Right.
whatever's written here.
And I'll second that.
Okay. Nobody wants to amend anything? Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve as written. Roll call vote, please.
David Dahl.
No.
Margot Murray.
Yes.
John Scott Walker.
No.
Colleen Murphy White.
No.
Greg Sutton.
No. All right, your application has been denied as written. Ms. Ireland, just for purposes of clarification, the application as written cannot come back for 12 months. The application can be modified in some form. I'm not sure what that would look like.
I'm not sure either, but for subsequent applications, it does have to be a year from the date of the denial.
Okay. All right, planning department report.
Our next meeting is on January 25th, and we have one case on that agenda. And that's all.
Anybody with a conflict known at this point? Okay. See everyone then.